artist here, and I'm on faculty at the High School of Performing and Visual Arts as a dance teacher, and I would love to introduce the director of the film we just saw, Ma. Her name is Celia Rowlson-Hall. Is it just a Hall or?
Celia Rowlson-Hall.
Celia Rowlson-Hall. If you could just join me in welcoming her. And I was going to ask if you didn't mind giving us
the
those
movie's starting again.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't need it again. Yeah. We want to hear it, Tom. Awesome.
Thank you.
Why are you excited?
Thank you. I was going to ask, I'm not sure if everyone knows a little bit about you, so if you wouldn't mind sharing, you from Virginia originally? Okay, and then I know that you're a graduate of North Carolina School of the Arts. Can you talk to us about kind of Virginia, your transition to NCSA, and then moving to New York, and how we got here?
Yes.
They loved it.
Can anyone hear them okay?
No, you can't? Oh, I thought I was projecting enough. Okay.
So I was born and raised in a very small town in Urbana, Virginia, and by the age of 5, I knew that I wanted to be a dancer, and so I pursued dance quite heavily. Take it. Great. So I pursued dance starting when I was 5, and was very passionate about making up my own dances and stories. And then I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts, which is an arts conservatory, and got my degree in modern dance and choreography, and then moved to New York. And my intention was to move to New York to have a dance company, but then I was asked to choreograph for a music video, and when I walked onto set and just saw this incredible collaborative energy and everybody working together, 12 to 14 hours to make this thing, I just sort of, I was so intrigued, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I thought, well then, why don't I bring my choreography, my dance, and way of storytelling to film. So that was about 6-7 years ago, and I just started making a lot of short form work. I'm generally the subject in this short form work, and so a few years ago I knew that I really wanted to make a feature, and I wanted to see if I could tell an entire narrative story without dialogue, and so then came Ma.
Awesome. And I was going to ask, let's jump straight to Ma. Exactly, for your first feature film, right? This is the way, I know you'd been doing work with in music, and like you said, your own shorts. For this to be the first project that you're putting out as a feature film, why this subject? What was so compelling? I know as artists, sometimes we have ideas, we write them down, and then they may just stay ideas. What kept pulling at you and tugging at you for this to be the first kind of voice of you as an artist, as a filmmaker?
Well, I think that, it's complicated, sure, as with everything. I think for me, I very much knew, I knew that I wanted to tell like a woman's story, and so I wanted to, and what I thought was I was sort of telling every woman's story by sort of doing this version of like a modern day Virgin Mother. So it's not necessarily Mary's telling, but it's just sort of, it's everyone, because we all come onto this earth as impressionable beings, and then life happens. And I think the biggest thing for me is I wrote it very subconsciously. All the images came to me in sort of moments, and so what was interesting is that I realized I was telling my story, but the whole time I thought I was telling like someone else's story. And so for me, it's my it was me. I always believe in asking questions, because if I'm giving the audience answers, I don't know why you're there or why I'm making it. So for me, it was a questioning of self, of identity, of sexuality, of what it is to be a woman in this world, and how are we perceived, and how do we survive. So there was a lot of like subconscious and conscious questioning happening in sort of this cyclical way.
So is that why you chose to be the subject as opposed to having someone else perform the role? example?
So I mean, the thing is like the kind of work that I make, it's very hard to explain, and it's really hard to explain if you don't have to show first. And I know that the kind of work that I'm making only I can do, but now once I got this out, I have something to show, and I can say this is the style that we're making. So I always knew it was necessary for it to be in the story, and I also I don't like speaking. I don't have the desire to talk on screen, and so it works perfectly with this sort of otherworldly type of person, because if you heard her speak, she would just become human so quickly. So I kind of, it was out of a necessary of casting of self, and the kind of film that and to tell a story through the body, so I know my body, so I knew what I wanted to push forward.
You mentioned a little bit about writing. Talk to us about the script, if there was one, or was there more of a structured improvisation? How much freedom was there, scene by scene? I read somewhere, it might have been in the Dance Magazine article, where you talked about one take. You don't like to do multiple takes, and it kind of connects you with this idea of live performance. Was that the case here?
Yeah, there's a few moments where I set it up so that I could only do it in one take. So the going up the stairs in Vegas, that was a continuous take. Cutting off the hair, a continuous take. And so knowing that there's no going back, because I think that then brings sort of an attention while shooting, because the thing is, when you're shooting, you're like, okay, let's get in the next take, and then all of a sudden you're take 8 or 9, and I don't know what you're really forwarding. So I feel like the more sort of theatricality and risk that I can put into the shot, then there's fewer, the risk is more, but then hopefully the outcome is stronger. So for me, I wrote this. The way that I work on stuff is that I get images and I kind of just write them down, and I keep them in a notebook. And then this story, though, I kind of wrote it like a once upon a time story over the course of like 2 mornings a few years ago. And then I looked at it, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this. I don't know what it is. And then I wrote it out into script form, and then there was moments of sort of looking at the images that I had created and realizing, oh, okay, this kind of goes here, and sort of putting that together. But then I had just pockets of, Ma does the dying swan dance, and so then I go into the studio, and then I created that movement. So there was like one half writing, and then the second half was writing through choreography.
Okay. And that was going to be an additional question of mine. Did you ever go into the studio, or was it something done on set, or how did you?
No. I rehearsed the hell out of this thing. I treated it like a live performance, like a play, because I knew that once I got out to shooting, having to wear so many hats, that there really wasn't going to be space for me to sit around and think about it. So I was very rehearsed. My DP had come into my rehearsals in New York and watched, and we had storyboarded and we had shot listed. So I'm a believer that if you rehearse something so much, that then it becomes a part of, like, it's in the joints, and that then it can feel improvisational. But everything for this was like meticulously planned, from like how lazy her left eye was to everything.
So I'm imagining this character consumed who you were for quite a bit of time. Did you have trouble transitioning out of this person, or since you were saying that it's sort of your story, does it just live with you continuously?
Yeah, I think that it was actually very easy, and there was a real, because of the amount of rehearsal and understanding where the breath was and where the face sat, and just and even like how much bend in the knees and everything, because I had just rehearsed that, I could physically tap into it so quickly. And so it was also like, I personally, when I was young, I grew up quite religious, and I was always like alone and praying. And so in a way, to be in my adult life, to be like in wilderness kind of yet again, and like seeking for something higher, it was actually weirdly easy. and it was really lovely to be so quiet inside of this character. So as painful as it was at times, I also really loved being her.
Absolutely. And was that the same direction that you gave the other cast members, the artists? There were particularly two male dancers. One, forgive me for names, I don't remember names, but I knew one was with Batsheva and one with Cedar Lake, but I'm not sure who.
So there's no dancer with Batsheva. So Jason Kittelberger is with Cedar Lake, and then Bobby, a female, Bobby Jean, that's her name.
Bobby Jean, okay.
She's with Batsheva.
Got it. There we go.
And she's in the movie 4 times because I put a lampshade on her head at the end because I was like, we've seen you before. And so she was very helpful with being a set of eyes and heart off screen when I was performing and in there, and so that was hugely helpful.
I was going to say that's extremely helpful to have, especially if you are feeling kind of alone in the process, but needing to some sort of feedback.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question. I know you do have a background in live theater, live performance. Do you think this story could be told in a proscenium on the stage just as well on film?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, it's like it's about nature, and it's about how small we are compared to it. And like, I think that, Jason, as he's rolling down the dunes, yes, he would be beautiful rolling across the stage, but there's just something when you put him up against something just far bigger than himself. And for me, I really love bringing dance to film because I think like you kind of can somehow, it's hard, but like lose a bit of the performance it's like it can kind of live in the world in a more natural place instead of you're there to see a show.
Sure.
I think with like dance and film, like it's so hard, but like there's something there that I think is just absolutely magical and elevates the dance in a different but more real way.
And do you feel like that's what's happening with dance? I know I'm constantly having conversation with colleagues about the art of live dance and people coming and not going to see performances, and when it's more accessible in film, is that one way we should go to be able to get our art out there quicker or at a larger capacity? Do you think that that's what's happening?
I think if that's what you're passionate about, then yes, but if not, no, because I think there's a lot of conversations, is ballet dead? No, ballet's ballet, and it will always be ballet.
Sure.
And now, modern dance or contemporary dance on stage, that's what that is. And film itself is just it's a new medium, really. So we're bringing other forms to it, and there's a lot to be explored. So I think that all of it's necessary, and nothing should kill out the other. It's just adding to the narrative of how dance can fill itself in so many spaces.
I would agree. I don't want to hold you. I want to keep the audience open as well. If anyone has any questions about what we saw or any specific questions for Celia, please raise your hand and I'll try to repeat it if I can hear you. Anyone? No? Yes.
I enjoyed the visual jokes throughout the movie that you put in there. I was wondering what filmmakers inspired you, and if Matthew Barney was one of them.
I don't like Matthew Barney. I will say it. He's pretentious. And how could you leave Bjork? I appreciate you seeing the moments of humor there, and I will say my biggest inspirations, because I grew up in a no TV household, the only thing I could watch were Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, and so there is something about like physical comedy that's like a part of my upbringing. But as for filmmaker inspirations, I really got into film I just dove in without really actually like watching much, to be quite honest. You know, my biggest inspirations choreographically are like Pina Bausch and Anna Teresa de Kirchemacher. So when I got into film and I started making things, people said, "Oh, you have Valencian thing," or "Have you seen Jodorowsky?" And I watched a few of their works, and I said, I'm too much of a sponge, and so I said, I can't watch this because I have to be my own, and I have to make my own. And so I've kept blinders on, and you don't talk to me about film, actually, because I'm terrible. I have no knowledge. However, now that I feel like I've made something where I've expressed the kind of storytelling and visual that I have, I am 100% so excited and eager to watch all of the greats. And so that is something that's in my future education, but I didn't really have any inspirations before.
Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
Is there difficulty transitioning from short form to longer form cinema?
I don't think so. I think if you have the story, that if the story is meant to be told long form, then that's the form. I know that if I had tried to jump right into a feature and had not made like close to 50 shorts, that I probably would have failed quite miserably, because those shorts were exercises and like working the muscle to be able to endure the marathon. Some people can jump right into features, but for me, I definitely needed the short form work as an exercise. But I think that whatever story you're trying to tell, it doesn't matter if it's short or long. It's about like honoring the length in which the story needs to be told. So I've had shorts that were harder to make than this. Not really, that's a lie. But anyways.
Well, speaking of your shorts, the audition, I think that should be shown to anyone pursuing a career in performing arts, specifically acting. I think it's just hilariously poignant and kind of right on par with what someone might experience, the vulnerability of standing before the casting table and putting yourself out there. And it's not very long, like you were saying, but I do think that it's just as strong as a longer film could be. So if you have a chance to see any of her shorts, that one in particular, or any others, you should do so. And there's actually screening. Will the audition be a part of the screening tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
There will be some screenings of all of your shorts, or most?
Oh, good. Like I think probably like 13.
13
Wow.
of them, yes. Tomorrow at the Aurora Picture Show. Tomorrow night, I'm not sure of the time. You'll have to tell us.
I think
7 o'clock.
Right.
7 o'clock. So
Yeah.
you should also, if you enjoyed this, you should see that as well. Any other questions about the film, about what you experienced? No?
Well,
Yes.
I was wondering about the specific point of view that you used, because it's kind of very open. You can think whatever you want. But now that you mentioned your position about women, it actually came to me several times during the film. So I think it's kind of probably a little abstract, but it actually gets to our line. So it's very beautiful, very inspiring.
Thank you so much.
And is that okay for you, that there can be multiple interpretations after seeing the film?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think what's important as the filmmaker is that I know exactly what I'm making, but I think that there needs to be left, but you can't put everything that you know out there, because then there's actually no room for conversation. And I think that we have created a kind of cinema that literally lets you sit back in these chairs and just get like blasted with every piece of information and point of view and story beat. And so like I'm looking to make work that actually you have to work for, because like what has been rewarding in your life that you haven't actually worked for? And so why wouldn't we bring that to cinema and all the art that we make? So yes, I know it can be frustrating and feeling isolating, or you don't know, but like that's the journey, and that's the journey that I'm on, and the work that I want to see, and the work that I want to make.
Sure. I saw a hand behind. Yes.
I'm wondering about your emotional performance and what connection you have to acting, because I just felt like you were so vulnerable
Thank you so much. I actually don't have any, I mean, I did a summer training acting program, and then when I moved to New York, I took acting classes, because there's definitely a part of me that wanted to be an actor, but then I just actually, it was very hard for me to speak. I don't like lines, really. And so what's been so wonderful about the discovery of filmmaking is that I could bring my love of performance, I guess is what I put, sort of like the combination of dance and acting together in the way that I feel most aligned in like how I can express, but I don't have really any acting experience per se. But I cry all the time, so I feel like I'm very emotionally available.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I would agree. Any other additional questions to that? I think that's a beautiful way. Oh, over here.
It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. I was wondering what your process was with music.
Mm-hmm. So with the music, I worked with this wonderful friend and composer, Brian McComber, and one thing that I knew was that I wanted to work a lot with the gong, because with most instruments, with the piano and with the guitar, when you hit a key or strum a note, you hear it decay in even increments. And the thing with the gong is that once you hit the gong, it doesn't decay in that way, and it actually recycles and loops and then it catches. And so because it's not even, our brains can't actually make sense of it. And so that's why when you hear gong, you go to another place in your brain, because the logical part can't hold on to it. And it's also one of this most elemental, deep sort of, I think of it as almost like a primordial sound. So I told Brian, I said, we're only using the gong, and so we started playing with gongs, and then we would stretch them out to 2 hours long on this music, not app, but basically, and then we would listen, and then pull this one part out, and then he would start, and then we said, okay, and then I would use those 2-hour sequences in the dance studio and figure out how Ma walked around, and so it was a back and forth. And then what we did was we realized, okay, now we need this instrument, and now we need this. So it was like piecing it on very gently, but always wanted the score to feel sort of just as restrained as the rest of the film.
How old are you?
Oh.
32.
Very young and accomplished. Bessie Award winning, Emmy nominated, is that correct? One Emmy nomination. Just one more than me. Okay.
So how was the process for you to get money to the film?
So it was very challenging, because a lot of people didn't understand what the heck I was making. So what I did is, because I've had all my short films online, for the past few years, and taken those to festivals, I did a Kickstarter so the people that had enjoyed my shorts could see that I promised them, I'm gonna make this thing. I'm not gonna take your money and run. And so I did the first on Kickstarter, and then I had 2 wonderful executive producers come in, Carl Kister and Mary Calkins, and they had helped with another short that I had made, and then I had another executive producer, Neil Bledsoe, who was an actor that I went to school with, who just believed in supporting me, and so they supported the project, and then I actually shot a commercial while we were shooting this, and used all the funds from the commercial to support the film, and then finished very in debt, and then had another executive producers who saw a rough cut. Memory is their name, and they came in and gave the last bit of financial support to get the movie cut and colored and ready to festivals.
Yes.
welcome to continue the conversation out here.
Outside,
We have to get ready
not
for the
inside.
next film. I apologize.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.